G'day guys and welcome, my name's Michael and I am the DeadAussieGamer, here to share with you my tips, tricks, ideas and strategies for playing and running tabletop role-playing games. We are back once again with another deadly GM sin, today looking at favoritism. Now favoritism is a very interesting and unique sin because more often than not, as a GM, you will not notice when this sin is afflicting you. Instead, it'll be your players that'll notice first. So, tip number 1. If your players at your table tell you that you are favoring a particular player or that you are favoring a particular character, don't argue, don't make a fuss, accept this and try and deal with it. Hopefully today we're going to be talking about what are some of the things you can use to deal with favoritism. But yeah, before that, let's of course go to the fun bit and describe what type of monster embodies this sin for every GM. Now for me, whenever I think of favoritism, I imagine a siren. These beautiful seductresses that lure sailors to their doom. And the reason being is, like with a siren and its beautiful song appeasing those people around it, a GM using favoritism is someone who is trying to appease one of the players. Now this could be because they are a well-deserving player, someone who is really into the role play, gets the narrative done and has done things to deserve a reward. At the same time, it could be your partner in your relationship that is coming along to a game and you do not want to be left out on the couch. Maybe it could simply be because somebody is your best friend in the whole wide world and they don't really understand the game too well, so you kind of take it easy on them. These little things seem like great ideas. They seem like magnanimous ideas filled with the best of intentions. But what ends up happening isn't about the people you're favoring. It's about the people who get excluded. And that is when the siren rears its ugly head. That is when you as a GM suddenly get pulled into the briny depths where the pressure and the judgment that lurks behind our players starts to sink in and makes it hard to struggle to breathe life into your game. So what do we do when this happens? How do we even remotely contend with favoritism if we can't even see it? Well, let's start by talking about pacing. Now, pacing in tabletop management is one of the hardest things for any GM to do. It is something I think every GM should at some point or another learn how to be able to manage. How much time do you have in your game? How much time is allocated to narrative, to combat, to puzzle solving? How much time is allocated to each of the players so that they can explore their characters and have fun? Understanding the time periods and the restrictions that you have is a great way to make sure that favoritism doesn't happen. Ensuring that if someone is too quiet, being able to notice that and going, hey, okay, cool. So while these guys are waiting, doing their thing, what are you up to? How are you going? What is it going through your character's mind right now? These things and many more are just par for the course and things that will really help mitigate favoritism. However, if you're already suffering from it, if it is something that is already done, that advice doesn't really help you. So let's talk about nerfing. Yes, that's right, I said the big N-word, nerfing people. It's not talking about the little foam gun things. We're talking about nerfing as in to reduce the power or effectiveness of an individual. Now, sometimes when we favor an individual, it may be unwarranted or unjust. As such, it is sometimes in our best interest to bring things back before it loses control. One such example, I was playing in a game of Reign of Winter, which is a Pathfinder, Russian-inspired kind of setting. And one particular player was being favored by the GM. They would find unique treasure that would cater to their backstory. They were constantly being favored by the NPCs. So the NPCs were always kind of in these very positive relationships with them, and the rest of us kind of left behind. Nerfing in this case doesn't necessarily mean, oh, well, a rust monster shows up and eats your magic sword, but instead being able to simply back off, to basically have those negative encounters with that individual. That in itself, for me at least, would have made the game more enjoyable. If we came to town and everyone didn't treat this particular player as the stalwart hero just because he's the GM's best friend, or even if somebody randomly just didn't like him or got into an argument or got into a fight. These negative connotations can often help mitigate a person who is being accused of being favored by the GM. I wouldn't recommend trying to balance things mechanically with nerfing. at least not backwards, right? Follow me on this. Do not take a core rule or a core power and then dumb it down so that everyone is, on equal level. Don't do that. Instead, do the next thing that is a really great idea to solve favoritism, and that is bring everyone up. By bringing everyone up and giving everyone a fair chance to roleplay, giving everyone a fair chance at loot and at treasure and at all the cool stuff that we really play the game for, you bring everyone's attitude up. Because it's no longer about punishing a person. Because when you punish someone, if you, nerf them, they feel bad. No one likes being nerfed. And then the people who feel bad kind of feel a bit of schadenfreude and, kind of feel like, oh, well, that guy had it coming. And the person who's being brought down is kind of like, well, that kind of sucked. Now I'm down here. Whereas if you bring everyone up, everyone feels good. The guy who's being favored or the guy who was favored is like, yeah, this is a great game. And the people who weren't being favored before are now like, well, yeah, cool. We get some stuff now too. This is awesome. This is great. I find that by bringing everyone up, you tend to create that positive outlook. That positiveness then bleeds into your game, it bleeds into the role play, and it makes everyone's time way, way, way more enjoyable. All right, so that is the favoritism thing. Now for the anecdote. I don't really want to talk about the anecdote, but I'm gonna kind of push through it. So when I was first starting out as a GM professionally, I work at a local youth center, and it was my first year at my job. I had a very small table of young people, ages 10 to maybe 15, and I had with me as well an adult table. Now, the adult table comprised of 4 players, and I'm not even joking. I have no idea how, but I feel like I somehow managed to pick up the 4 most toxic and awful people I had ever met in my life. These people were the kinds of people that would do stuff like they would download the adventure that I was running and read it in advance in order to metagame their way through the adventure. They would write intricate backstories and constantly drag my story back towards their own personal quest. This murder hoboing, no rules lawyers because they didn't really understand the rules as well as I did, but this kind of attitude was just prevalent everywhere. However, there was this one person who was just an absolute trooper. He wrote a great character. He always engaged with everything. He was an absolute pleasure to GM for. Not because he was a nice person or anything like that. It was just he was genuinely enraptured in the game and genuinely wanted to further the story and engage in the adventure. Whereas no one else really did. Everyone was kind of there for their own selfish catharsis at the expense of whatever we were doing. I'm going to kill... what was it? No. A bear attacks a pregnant lady. Why? Because you are aware goblins are attacking the village right now. The pregnant lady is hiding in a shed being attacked by a goblin. And instead of attacking a goblin, you want to wild shape into a bear and go and kill her. Yeah. I want to see what happens. Now, I know many of you who are listening to this story think, well, how does this fall into the favoritism thing? Well, regardless of these individuals who were at my table, the player who was really cool, I ended up just running him through the game, which meant that, yeah, people thought he was a hero. People gave him stuff when he walked through the streets. Like, yeah, you saved my grandmother from a burning building. Here is a bag of cupcakes. Whereas everyone else were bastards. And so everyone hated them. It's like, yeah, no, you killed the miller's wife. You should be arrested. None of us like you. Go away. We don't have quests for you. The only reason we even tolerate you guys is because you're friends with the town hero. This, of course, then turned into the favoritism argument. Oh, Michael is favoring this one person because he's, really likes this person, but he hates us. Let's just ruin his game because, that's the cool thing to do. Now, I know that these guys were toxic, and there are a whole bunch of different ways that I can think about talking to my older self or my younger self and explaining what to do. At the time, I know I didn't handle it well. They accused me of favoritism. They accused me of this, and I did literally nothing. I turned to them and I said, maybe then you should do better. maybe you should stop being such pains in my ass and actually do something that is roleplay worthy, and maybe I'll give you some stuff. Now, while I know many of you will agree with that, what it tends to do is it doesn't acknowledge the players that I have at the table. It doesn't acknowledge what each of my players are searching for and what they need, and how I as an entertainer can best entertain them. Sure, we have murder hobos, so why not look at adding in things that would allow them to run rampant, to be able to explore and stretch and go out. Somebody was chaotic evil, so why not give them that opportunity to be able to run off the leash, or to be able to work within the confines of the group, but with some exceptions. And of course, if someone's reading the module, why aren't I coming up with my own material? Why aren't I coming up with some side quests that throw them and give them that sense of wonderment, which hopefully then addicts them to experiencing things by surprise rather than by reading it in advance? This and many more are things that I could have told myself and I could have done. What I ended up doing led to my entire table dissolving after every single one of those players then started bad-mouthing me to other players, which was not easy. It was not an easy thing to come back from it, like I said, especially given I had only just started out. But the end result was that I had learnt that there were many ways to acknowledge everyone at the table. Every single player had their own needs, and favoritism is always going to be in the eyes of the people who are being excluded. And you need to acknowledge that. You need to accept that this is how they feel and find your own truth in how to solve that. Alright guys, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope it was helpful for you. If it was, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Tell us in the comments below whether or not you have had to suffer with favoritism, or if you have been using favoritism and how that has gone for your campaigns. Go check out all of our other stuff in the links below, and of course, till next time guys, as always, game hard or die trying. See you guys!